has the right to dream. There are endless possibilities stretched out before him.
You have to trust in your own power.
Whatever happens from now on, you stand firm and face your destiny without fear, but with courage.
What awaits him down the path, he will then have to choose.
No one's gonna give you a map. You've got to walk your own path.
The children leave their homes in search of this quest.
What is thy desire?
As they search, they are always asking questions. What's out there? What's waiting for me?
Why was I made? Who made me? And what did they make me for?
Are you gonna go up into space with your old man or not?
Maybe I'll never get over this.
I've lived my life following my dreams, and I don't have any regrets.
You're gonna just keep running away?
Just keep running away? I'm not running.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Believe in yourself and create your own destiny. Don't fear failure.
All right. Pause that intro music. All right, everyone. Welcome to the Dudsnbuds Podcast, number 3. We have some things. I put 3 down. For me, technically, it's 3, but
fair enough.
Whatever.
Fair enough.
We have some things we're going to talk about today. Danny's going to ask me some questions on self-defense. Danny's then going to talk about Alan Watts a little bit. We're going to discuss the new Marvel shows and a little bit about Dune. And close it out probably with talking about some tech, mainly the Mars copter and Elon Musk.
Don't forget about what's on
Just in general.
everybody's mind, Dogecoin.
Oh, yeah. And then in the middle, we're going to talk about some crypto, some Doge, the crypto crash, and I'd like to talk about Chainlink, too. If you want to
How
pull
much
that
I
up and
hate Doge.
Yeah, the best coin that there is. So the way that we're going to structure the show is that we're going to mainly focus on 5 topics that we're going to be going over. They'll be fairly broad, but we want to kind of stick to some main topics: culture, philosophy, finance, art and entertainment, and technology. And those are kind of related to the topics I already listed before. But we'll try and stick to that format, and we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, and we're just kind of like, when we originally thought about doing this, it was more like, how can we make this interesting? Well, everybody has their own perspective on life, so let's just be two brothers' perspective on life, because we talk pretty much every day. We figured some of the things we talk about might interest people, so that's kind of where we're at, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I don't think that we both don't claim to know or be experts on anything, but we do talk about a bunch of stuff all the time, and I agree. I think our conversations will at least be interesting, and hopefully they can be a little entertaining and have some other perspectives or same perspectives, and maybe we can build a little bit of a fun community. So we'll see how that goes.
We're experts at trying to live adult life.
That's true.
Yeah, trying.
Trying.
The main word here.
We might be.
So yeah,
experts
some crazy stuff. Crazy stuff happening in the news. Crazy stuff happening in our country. There's a lot of, interesting things. I think is putting it as mildly as possible. But I know you wanted to get into some self-defense because, there's a lot of different ways of looking at the types of self-defenses that's going on. So I don't know.
I mean, self-defense
where do you
is
want to
something.
start?
Like we can talk about this just in general. Like, how do you feel about self-defense for yourself? Do you feel that you're live in a dangerous environment? Do you feel like self-defense is pertinent to your life? Do you think that it's important for other people to know either self-defense in one way or just the laws about it as well?
Well, I mean, I'll be honest. I don't feel I am completely ambivalent towards it. Like, if I were in a scenario where my life was threatened, I would not use self-defense because I haven't been trained in it, and it's not my go-to. I know that people when they're young and they might like get into karate classes or jujitsu or whatever, or you know, even as you get older, you have like, I don't know, gun training or whatever, or knife training, all that stuff, and you can utilize that stuff in the real world. For me personally, like I've never done any of that. I've never really even hardly considered it. You know, I've been mugged maybe once in my whole life, you know, and it might've just been a random occurrence, but you know, I haven't lived in big cities or had that many people around me. So in terms of how I feel about it, frankly, I don't know that much about it, you know, although it's shoved in my face a lot these days just because of what's happening in our country. So it's kind of scary. So I can definitely see the importance in it.
You know, and I can get the, you know, and self-defense is going to be different for every person. Every person is going to be comfortable for different types of things. You know, and again, self-defense could be as simple as carrying a second wallet. Speaking of self-defense, someone probably just got shot outside my apartment.
Is that what that was?
Yeah, that's what that was.
All right. Hey, what apt timing. They must have known we're doing this conversation.
Quick succession like that, a loud enough pop with an echo in it. That was probably gunshots. Now, again,
the world is crazy, right? You know, and you live in a big city, so
I live in a big city.
Here in rural Illinois, it's not really happening all that often. It does.
Not completely true, dude. There's a lot of shootings.
Hey, they don't know where I live. They don't know where I live. He didn't say it.
Whatever.
All right.
Anyone who knows us is gonna know where we live.
That's true.
Or have lived. No, yeah. So just a little bit about my area. My area is not a very nice area. I'm very close to Colfax and Denver. Colfax is notorious for being a very sketchy area. I have local homeless people that like to live in my laundromat that's connected to my building. So I think about self-defense pretty often. You know, I live in a dangerous place, and you know, am I at threat of being mugged all the time? No, but I guess I could be. So again, go back to like what I was saying before. You know, self-defense could be as simple as carrying 2 wallets and having a plan for if something happens that you give them the fake wallet instead of the real wallet, or you know, like some people will carry 2 phones, and sometimes will carry, you know, a bag to give away, or you know, those are smart things to do if you're in an area like mine. You're traveling around late at night. You don't want to have to, you know, defend yourself, but you also don't want to lose all of your stuff.
Yeah, I never even thought about that.
Exactly. And again, honestly, the best self-defense and civilian and someone who's just walking around generally in the public is pepper spray. It's the best. If you can get to it and it's non-lethal and it gives you an opportunity to escape. You know, escaping is probably the best option when it comes down to self-defense.
Yeah, and I mean, so I think one of the main reasons that we're even bringing this up is obviously just because of all the unrest in the country right now and what's kind of going on. And, you know, just to date this video, I mean, you know, there were riots all last summer. There are continuing to be riots for certain incidences that really have a lot to do with self-defense, nearly all of them. And kind of where does that fall in your normal life? A lot of people just don't think about it, and they don't think about it from different angles or different perspectives. What they do is you see a crazy viral video at this point and you just make an assumption, you make a judgment right away. But like, frankly, there are so many things that go into each of those crazy interactions, whether it be with police or whether it be with like the Rittenhouse incident, like Kyle Rittenhouse incident in Kenosha, which was 6 months ago at this point. But yeah, I mean, it's not something that people think about day to day unless they're in a job like what you're doing. I mean, you asked me how I feel about it, and again, I'm like ambivalent towards it because I just don't think about it until it happens to me. So.
This is a good question, because why do you think that people don't think about it? You know, I safety is a thing that we should be, you know, at least aware of majority of the time. Do people too comfortable? Do they not think that?
Oh yeah,
it could happen to them? What do you think?
I think one of the main issues is you don't think about what you don't think about all the time, right? So like. Your safety is just the thing that's always happening until you're not safe anymore. And so you're not going to think about this thing that's always your natural state, right? Mm-hmm. It's the same thing about like, you don't think about your breathing. You just do it, you know? You don't think about being safe. You just are safe until you put yourself in a scenario where you're not.
Yeah,
and,
that's a good point.
You know, whether that be like you mentioned, walking at night or whatever, I mean, I think the most we ever think about our safety, like on a regular basis, is like locking our doors, for instance. Like we always lock our doors no matter what at this point in, 2021. And so that one point when you're going to bed and you're like, oh, well, if I'm going to be sleeping, I want to be secure. So I lock my door. Mm-hmm. And that has nothing to do with when you're obviously out and about and walking around. But yeah, I don't constantly think about my safety or I don't constantly think about the chances that I'm going to get mugged. I just think I'm just going to live my life and everybody's going to be kind to each other because, people are generally decent. And sometimes you can't give that much credit towards everyone, especially at night or in certain areas. So yeah, I think that's the main reason why people don't think about it.
I think the way that you put it is really good, that people treat safety kind of like breathing, where it's super important, but they don't notice it. And because that there's some alternate system that is perpetuating that safety that you are then taking part of. So therefore it becomes second nature and you don't realize that there is this thing that is keeping people safe. This kind of then leads to, people feel safe, so they don't think about self-defense or think that they need to be concerned about self-defense. Do you think that's
or what type of self-defense is appropriate in what scenario?
I mean, besides that, though, like, do you think that is because people are comfortable with police and that they are taking it? So they're taking advantage of this safety net that is there from the police. Do people not understand that? Is that like the disconnect that people are having, that people are safe without police, so we don't need them?
I think what we were talking about before, when it comes like the involuntary thing, like breathing, you never think about it. I think police are the same way. People take it for granted. It's just like, yeah, there'll always be if something goes down, there'll always be somebody who can show up until there's not.
And like, obviously that's what I'm getting
at. There's definitely like a major push in some areas of our country that are just like, we want no police. And I really genuinely think if they got what they wanted, they would immediately be like, oh, damn. Like,
I think people are
now
seeing
who do we call?
I think I'm sure we're going to see it.
I'm absolutely sure we're going to see it. Like, frankly, like it's one of those things that's, never really been tested at least for the last 100 years. There's always been the local sheriff who you can call for the last 100 years in every area. And, we could talk for hours about, what is appropriate amount of policing and whatnot. And, I have opinions on it. I know you have opinions on it. But, like, frankly, you could do a whole show on that. But the fact of the matter is people are eventually going to realize once cops don't want to do cops anymore, once they don't want to do policing anymore, and you get more and more of them walking away from the job because of, whatever the political climate is, people will really start to notice it. And we'll start to notice it in just straight up in statistics. And we're just going to see crime happening more and more often. And so I think it's a very apt topic to be talking about self-defense, because if you want to move to an area that is heavily populated, it doesn't even have to be a city.
Yeah, just heavily
populated. Area that's heavily populated, which generally, obviously are cities and things like that. But if you want to do that, you better know self-defense at this point. And frankly, like, this better than anyone, like carrying a gun, that is going to be pretty important in certain areas that allow it, in order to, like, literally maintain your safety or your property.
Yeah, and I mean, and again, that obviously I'm kind of leading into that conversation of if people feel safe, but they don't realize why they're safe. If that other safeness goes away, they're very quickly going to have to realize that they aren't safe, and they're going to have to take measures to be able to protect themselves and defend themselves. We've already seen that a lot. We've seen the gun sales skyrocket over the past year.
God, yeah.
So
just as soon as the riots, it was just a mess.
To me, that is the best and scariest thing at the same time. Again, we have this understanding and this, specialty in safety, and a lot of people don't take, that type of stuff seriously. That's how negligent discharge happens. That's how you get inexperienced people with guns, taking them out when they're not supposed to, or having them in places they're not supposed to, because they don't understand the laws, which is a big part of self-defense, is understanding the laws that go into protecting you if you are using, force or, any type of self-defense against people. You're going to have consequences. That is just the reality of it.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's going to be on the tip of everyone's tongues for a while, probably the entire year, frankly, based on what I've seen, even just in the, from the first 6 days of this year to now, we've already seen almost a complete rehash of last year's craziness. And I think it's only going to get worse, especially with some current events that have gone on just in the last few days. It's going to get really messy. So we'll be able to talk about it quite a bit. I always want to come at it from, maybe different perspectives if possible, because, the way that I think may not be the lived, perceptions of some other people. So, there's a lot of conversations to be had, but
just to kind of wrap up this kind of portion, because we've kind of talked, and I agree. I want to talk about self-defense a lot on this show. It is one of my specialties. I've put a lot of time, effort, training, money into learning self-defense and learning techniques about it, and I'd like that to be something that we focus on, because I think that people can benefit from that. So just to kind of start this general kind of conversation, it really comes down to how much force do you think is warranted in different types of situations? And, just diving right on into it, because I think it's the best way to do that. Do you think that people should be able to kill somebody in self-defense?
I think it's 100% based on the circumstance, frankly.
So the way that the law stands is, when deadly force reasonably appears to be necessary to prevent the commission of a serious offense against a person in circumstances preventing an imminent danger or of death or serious bodily harm. That's pretty generally the type of language that's used in self-defense or use of force laws, and you have to meet a standard of being presented with imminent danger of death or serious bodily harm. So it doesn't just have to be threatened with death to be able to respond with lethal force. Have you heard of the force continuum?
Nope. Enlighten me and everyone else.
So one of the first things that they teach you in policing, in security, is this thing called the use of force continuum. And let's see if I can't. There, this is the one that I want. All right, let's get the switch up screen going. It just might take a sec to get the. Oh, boom! Look at that, perfect. Boom. So put that right there. So what I have on the screen right now is called the resistance/control continuum. And what it means is that you can usually meet different types of force with one step above it. So I'm not going to go over this right now, but I wanted to bring it up because there's a lot of things that go into it. And at the top, there's active aggression. And then above that is deadly force. So basically, intermediate weapons can be met with against active aggression, and then deadly force can be used against intermediate weapons as well.
So intermediate weapons being like what? Knives and whatnot?
Knives, batons, pepper spray, tasers, that is on the equal level of active aggression.
Right.
So those are on the same level, and you're allowed to meet active aggression with intermediate weapons or deadly force. And again, like I think that there is going to be a huge conversation about this force continuum and how it's used and how it's taught to people. You know, because it is direct escalation. It's built into it. You're meant to escalate things based on the use of force that's against you. You know, so this is something that every person is taught when they're doing, you know, again, any type of self-defense training. They teach you this in handgun courses. It's kind of the basis where people are taught how to meet aggression and how you can control it by going one step above it.
Yeah, and I wonder, you know, one of the main issues now is kind of like, how can you reform the things that each individual, you know, police precinct or each individual county, each individual state, whatever, is teaching, you know, based on this continuum or whatever their curriculums happen to be when you're in the academies or whatever, and whether it is appropriate or not. I think that's really kind of I think that's one of the logical arguments. There's a lot of completely, you know,
that's where I try
arguments
to take it
that
from.
aren't logical. You know, there's a ton of arguments that aren't logical. Like, oh, let's just get rid of police altogether. Like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And like, I think that if you're talking about what is appropriate in certain scenarios, that you could definitely have a debate about it. You could even have a debate about that, you know, that chart you're showing. But, you know, one thing that makes it so difficult, and I think one thing that makes it such a complex issue, is the United States is gigantic. There are tons of states, and there are vast numbers of counties and vast numbers of police departments. And it's kind of like, you know, what works for each individual police department can be different. You know, and again, I'm not an expert, and I'm really honestly not that ingrained in the discussion, you know, like the national discussion at least. So, but I do believe that it's interesting, and frankly, it is one of those things right now that is on everybody's mind. Like, it is kind of like what everybody's talking about in politics. You know, local celebrities or celebrities in general are getting in on stuff, and it's crazy. So, you know, it is a crazy thing.
I'll go back to the initial question that I posed, and you had answered it as, you know, it depends on the circumstance. And it's true. Everything depends on the circumstance. And like, you know, do you remember lifeguarding when we would be sitting up on stand and you run through scenarios in your head about situations and how to respond to them?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I do that with all sorts of situations with my life, specifically self-defense situations and specifically situations for my job. So I run through those types of scenarios in my head all the time. And for me personally, I have an extremely high threshold for me to use lethal force. And, you know, but that being said, one of the other things that they teach you whenever you start doing handgun courses or you're doing a, you know, an introductory concealed carry course, they teach you that don't carry a gun unless you're willing to end somebody's life. And not in the sense that that's what you want to do or that's what's going to happen.
I know what you mean.
But it's a possibility. And if you
like, don't carry it unless you're willing to pull the trigger.
Exactly. And it's not in the sense that, way to say it. You know, people always use the stereotype that, oh, people just want to go around killing people. I don't necessarily think that that's, you know, true. I'm sure that there are some crazy people that get into these types of careers for the authority, for the power, to be able to tell people what to do and things like that.
Oh yeah, there are cops like that for sure. Is it anywhere? Is it even within the 1 percentile? Probably not.
And that's what I think the issue is that most people just are now claiming that this is the only thing and only reason that these people are doing this is for the power and things like that. You know, so it's an insane contention though. Like, there's just no way that you can lump that on that many people. I raised the question: Do you not have it in you to protect yourself in a life-threatening situation? And, you know, that's what self-defense comes down to, is that, like, if we're going to be so critical to, the entity that's enforcing the laws, then we need as a society to be better prepared individually to handle ourselves and be prepared.
Yeah, dude, I'm going to tell you this right now, though. Our society is not ready to take that burden on, especially the generation that's underneath us. Dude.
Some people think they are, though, or maybe they think it's just not necessary.
No, I just mean as a whole. Dude, we're such a soft, like, the generation under us is just so soft. No one is ready. Dude, people cry about being called names at this point.
Well,
like people,
all right, so
people's lives are ruined because you don't like call them what they want to be called. It's ridiculous. You are definitely in this kind of special breed that knows how to defend themselves. Like I'm just flat out being honest. I think that there are so many people out there who aren't even prepared to like run their lives, let alone like go out of their way to learn how to benefit themselves with self-defense. It's just one of those things that, our country's kind of soft right now. At least the youngsters are.
And again, like I said, we're going a little long on this one because again, I just have so much to talk about. I'd love to focus on this some more. Maybe we focus on some specific self-defense cases and kind of talk about the particulars. Do kind of
I'd be really interested. I mean, I watch it happen all around me. I mean, I'm at least aware of all of these scenarios and kind of like the different perspectives on them. But I'd love to dive into them more because they're very, very complex, and they're complex from multiple sides of the aisle too. So I agree, and there's so much to talk about. And just to wrap it up, if anyone is interested in self-defense but doesn't want to focus on lethal, look into OC spray. It's awful, and it works really, really well. There's a bunch of cool things about it. You can get different kinds. You can get aerosol. You can get gel. You can get little teeny tiny ones. You can get big bear spray cans if you really want to. A lot of them also have ink in them. Did you know that? To get in people's eyeballs or something?
No, but it dyes them. So if you actually have something happen, you ink them with pepper spray and it puts orange dye all over their face, and now you have a description of the dude, like, hey, there's a dude who attacked me, I pepper sprayed him, he's got orange dye on his face and is wearing
not coming off for a long time.
So those types of things are good options for people. I always recommend that to females too, just very easily, something to keep on a keychain, to keep in a purse.
For sure.
A lot of people that I've talked to don't want anything to do with lethal force, and I have to respect that.
Yeah, I'm one of them. Yeah,
not everybody wants that, but that's because you also want police to be around to do those types of things. But besides the point, if you're interested about self-defense, start out with pepper spray. Read about pepper spray. I don't recommend pepper spraying yourself, but it is highly recommended.
Oh man, that was my whole plan. Was go out and I thought you meant just spray it in my own face. And
I had to get pepper sprayed to be able to carry it. And
the
really way that was explained to me, same thing with the taser, which we didn't even get into, but it's much better if you're going to use some sort of force on someone like a taser or pepper spray, that if you do actually
know what you're doing,
to know what you're doing and to know what type of pain you're inflicting.
Interesting.
That can be a saving grace, where if I was to, tase somebody and they get injured and I get on stand for it, and one of the first questions is, do you know what it's like to be tased? Absolutely. I had to do that for training and blah, 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 blah. Those types of things can back up your case and your better understanding of the types of things that you are inflicting on other people. All that being said, it's dangerous out there. People should definitely focus and try and learn some self-defense and be very, very situationally aware to the things that are going on around them. So we leave it right there. Went a little long, but it was one I wanted to talk about quite a bit.
It's all good.
What do we have on the next one on the list? Oh, you had Alan Watts, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, frankly, it's not just Alan Watts. He's just a interesting philosopher, old school kind of 70s British professor guy who spent a lot of his time learning about kind of Eastern mysticism and kind of translating strange Eastern mysticism for the masses in the 70s. And I've been watching a YouTube, a really interesting YouTube channel that is essentially, it's kind of like a guy drawing on a whiteboard, and in the background is just, philosophers and whatever podcasts, things like that happen to be enlightening or self-enriching or interesting in general, and they kind of draw along with it to kind of illustrate the whatever the I don't know, the speak is that they're doing.
The theme of the topic that they're recording.
Yeah, and Alan Watts is just he's got an interesting way of speaking and a voice that kind of brings things into perspective for people who don't want to like try to absorb big words, I guess is a good way to put it. He's just very interesting. And so, I've been finding recently that like trying to get rid of stress is really hard to do for people our age, adults in general, especially like men in general, because of, all these responsibilities we have moving through our daily lives. And so, I found a lot. I mean, YouTube is fantastic for a lot of different reasons, but, you can find so many ways to chill out is the best way to put it, by listening to intellectuals who have a different view, different perspective on the way the world works that you just don't think about. And so he's a great one to do that with. And so that's one of the things I've been doing recently is just finding ways to, I'm not going to say meditate because it's not what I do. I don't sit there and really, I'm always, this kind of stuff is always in the background. So I'm not really kind of I think meditating means clearing your mind. I don't really do that. I either do it while I'm working out, or I do it while I'm driving, or I do it while I'm whatever. So I'm not really truly meditating or truly clearing my mind out, but listening to this type of stuff is I guess it's a type of meditation, because you're expanding your mind, you're learning different thoughts, different perspectives and things like that. And I think it's really important. So, I mean, what do you think? Is there anybody else that you've been listening to, or what do you do? I know you read a lot of books.
So
a lot of audiobooks.
I've been trying to focus on philosophy very, very heavily in the past couple of months. I specifically go through the great courses on Audible. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I've done a couple of those. I've read a couple of books about Stoicism lately. I have a book called The New Stoicism, which is like a week-by-week guide that would be fun, I think, to go over and listen to ourselves and then bring out, and then we can talk about it and then offer that type of stuff to people so they can go listen to it too. It's not meditating, but it's kind of akin to that. Another one that I've been doing recently is called The Philosopher's Toolkit, and it's great because it's going through a lot of different philosophy topics and ideas, and it's breaking it down as far as arguments and how to deal with logic and all those types of things. And, I would like to dive into that even a little bit deeper and potentially do some writing on it, and then, put our thoughts on paper and maybe do like more of a blog kind of format as well. With that as something to go along with this, something we talk about, but also updating it. I know one of the other things I thought maybe me and you would be good at is I know that Jordan Peterson also has a like writing program that he has for free.
Yeah, self-authoring.
Mm-hmm. I think that would be something beneficial for us to utilize with the philosophy writing as well.
Yeah, I'm up for that.
But one of the ones that I thought was really interesting that I read recently was having rational conversations around polarizing topics. I was talking about a whole chapter.
Yeah, that sounds like that's something that doesn't happen very often.
And like, in
our political discourse and or public lives.
And this is the reason I bring it up too, because like I always try to do that, but even this caught me in this type of mentality. And the mentality is, whenever you hear someone say something that you just think is, oh, that can't be right. Oh, there's no way that's right. I don't know how they could think that. And that was the trigger, right? That was the thing that's meant to trigger your rational response to it. Be like, hey, wait a second. Why do I think this way? What about is what he is saying is actually wrong, or is this just my perception of his argument or something along those lines? And And like,
yeah, I've been going back and forth with that a lot.
And that's what I thought was so prevalent, because that's something that I do, coming from the position that thinking that I'm in the correct worldview or something, right? So that was something that was really good for me to hear and be like, maybe I should try and evaluate these things a little bit more. And
it happens. You can fall into that trap because especially when you like constantly listen to certain, whether it be podcasters or whatever, from a certain perspective, and that you always fall in that trap. Is like, oh, I'm listening to this stuff that they're constantly ragging on is wrong, and I'm listening to them constantly have this view on it, and I agree with this view, but why do I agree with it is the real thing. And so to bring it back to kind of Alan Watts and like listening to philosophy and listening to the main reason that I've been getting into it recently is I find it therapeutic to think in different ways.
Yes.
We go through life thinking the same way because by the time you're about 24, 25, your brain is finally developed and you have all this, you have your ego, you have yourself figured out, right? You have your way of thinking, the things that you think are correct, or even just your reality, your perception of the way the world works is kind of figured out, at least in your own mind, by about 25, or maybe it's more or I think it's a lot less for women because they're much smarter than men.
23 and it's 26 for men.
Yeah, exactly. So,
24 for women or something.
If you don't seek out certain things, like philosophy, for instance, that's basic. That's kind of my understanding of just what philosophy is like seeking out different answers or different ways of thinking. It's very therapeutic to do that, especially with interesting figures like Alan Watts, for instance, or a lot of these different kind of philosophers that are on this particular YouTube channel have just been very interesting to me. And you get very wrapped up in what they say because every 4 or 5 sentences they've got this fantastic revelation you never thought of, and then you have to like think of it in different ways, kind of bend your mind a little bit, and that really, I think that actually literally releases chemicals that can kind of give you a good feeling that can get you through your day sometimes. And I think that is a type of meditation in itself. It changes your perspective.
Well, and exactly. So like this is another thing that they talk about from this Philosopher's Toolkit book, is that one of the things that they talk about is taking yourself outside of whatever the conversation or whatever you're dealing with and looking at it from the bigger angle. And I think that people,
it's hard to do, but
it's very
really,
hard to do. It's good. And I try to do it, but I still fall into then going back to the things that I know or believe, and I miss the opportunity to open my mind to other perspectives.
Absolutely. And I think if emotions or anger or anything is mixed in, it's much harder to do anything like that. It's harder to step back when you're really riled up about a certain thing, or you're really kind of angry about a certain topic, or something as sad as like one of these police shootings happens.
Exactly.
It's very hard it's very hard to step back and be objective. And I have sympathy for people who can't really process it, or just they get very upset or angry, even when they become sort of mobs. I still sort of have sympathy for those types of people because I kind of get it, especially when you just add a bunch of anger all piled on top of each other. I don't have sympathy for people who immediately go to frickin' Twitter and tweet crap like, LeBron James or whatever. Yeah. I don't have sympathy for that kind of person because that person should know better. They should think before they frickin' type on a tweet.
At the same time, though,
Twitter anger does not. I don't see any.
Humans are emotional beings, and this just shows that no matter amount of money or fame takes you out of that emotional reaction state to in that instance, justifiably emotional for him to see something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I can sympathize with it, but think before you tweet.
One of the biggest things, again, I kind of go like, I've read so much philosophy, and I need to go back to then really drive some of these concepts home, write about them. I want to sit down and do nothing but listen to it, so I can like actually do a little bit better understanding of the topics that I'm listening to.
Yeah, I call that meditating. I don't know if that's really meditating, but that is what I
feel
like
focusing.
For me.
It sounds like focusing.
Well, yeah, I just mean that's kind of what I consider my personal meditating is like really focusing on a book or somebody talking about something where I'm actually absorbing it.
That was one of the biggest things that I took away from reading about the Stoics and their teachings and things.
Yeah.
And you know me, I'm a very emotional person, and it was good and bad for me to go through the Stoic stuff, because one of the big tenets of Stoicism is understanding and taking what's happening as it is and not letting it affect you emotionally, basically. And one of the ways that they tell you to practice doing this is to think about scenarios and basically expect the worst. And when you are expecting the worst, it's preparing.
It's pretty wise.
It's preparing yourself mentally to be able to deal with the emotions that come from the worst outcome of a scenario. So, like, here's a regular way I try and do this, right? I have some medical bills right now. I am of the understanding that my medical bills are going to be as expensive as they can be, that none of my insurance is going to work, that none of the extra payback, and I'm going to have to pay back this entire bill with no extra help, even though I have insurance, even though blah, 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 blah. Now, there's a good chance that my insurance is going to help. So if that happens, it's more of awesome, that's a good thing that happened, and I can look at the positive side of it. So when the worst thing happens, I am prepared to deal with that negative emotion that's already coming from it, so I'm not surprised or overwhelmed by it at the time of learning of the negative
hope for the best, plan for the worst.
That's the easy way of putting it, but like, you know, that phrase is easy to say, but it's really, really hard to actually implement into your life. Hard. And you know, again, I have been working on my emotional outbursts a lot over the last year, and that type of mentality has helped a lot.
Well, you've probably been able to get a lot of practice, I would imagine, with all the crazy crap.
Well, I mean, and I have to differentiate my work life from my personal life, because I control those two differently. I'm perfect in my work life. I can't lose control in my work life. That's unacceptable. I don't have space for that to happen. If that happens, someone gets hurt, whether it's from a gun, whether it's from a scuffle, whether it's from me getting stabbed. Like, these are things that I have to be prepared for, but then I can't overreact in these situations. Like, again, just a general example, going back to the self-defense conversation that we're talking about. Has anyone ever threatened to stab you?
No.
So I've been threatened to be stabbed multiple times.
Sure.
So this is something that this is something that I've had to internalize. I've had to understand. I've had to evaluate that situation quite a bit, and, you know, be prepared for when that happens. And again, super easy. Some dude threatened to stab me. I walked away. Like, nope, not going to engage anymore. Not my problem. Not my, you know, I'm not going to risk my life for this $15 an hour job. Blah, blah, blah.
Nor should you. Yeah.
Now, what did I want to do? Well, I kind of wanted to just kick that dude's ass. And, you know, he threatened my life, therefore I could probably meet that with physical force and, you know, protect myself. But again, those types of situations, I was able to, when he threatened me, understand that I don't need to engage anymore. I can disengage. This is that worst case scenario. One step worse would be him actually having a knife out on me, which he didn't. But, you know, being threatened is probably worst case scenario, and I was prepared for it, and I disengaged. You know. Now, again, in my personal life, out in public, if somebody said that to me and I'm armed, well, I'm going to try and disengage, but if I can't, you know, I'm going to protect myself. And those are the two different types of circumstances. So
yeah, for sure.
But you know, going back to philosophy has helped me so much in my work life, because I must be able to control my emotions and be able to have foresight and understanding about the consequences and the potential, you know, end consequences of my actions in either a work environment.
Well, yeah, and I'm sure it's just kept your brain in the right place, kept you sane in general, just being able to kind of flex your brain a little bit. That's what I found. I mean, it for me, it's more like just daily stresses, you know, daily stresses get piled on you all the time, and if you let them continually get piled on you, you don't really do anything to kind of stretch your mind out or expand your mind a little bit. Like, some people use drugs. I don't. I haven't used drugs in a while, and I think it's because I've tried other things. I guess you can consider caffeine a drug, but which I use all the time.
Water's the drug.
But yeah, I mean, there are ways people try to expand their minds. Some people it's through psychedelics. Some people it's through just using weed all the time. And for me, it's more just like you got to find certain ways to regulate. You got to regulate your mind. And so I've just found that a lot of there's a lot of interesting stuff on YouTube that can kind of you can use YouTube for so many different things, and this is one of the main benefits I've had of it recently within the last year, over COVID, keeping my stress levels down by just kind of like either listening to somebody's perspective on life, or even if it's just like chill hop or whatever the heck it is, that kind of thing is an easy way to meditate too. But
yeah, that got me through college.
For sure. All right, you ready to move on?
Yeah. Just wrapping that up. We'll do a lot more philosophy. I want to get a little bit even deeper into it and pull out legitimate topics and go over specific philosophers and specific ideas in general and dive into that stuff. This is just kind of a touching the surface of what we've been into lately about it. But
yeah, and I think we're not going to do like a course on anybody. We're not going to like talk in depth about all of this boring philosophy stuff.
Well,
we're gonna touch on it. We're gonna tell people from how it affects us from our perspective. At least that's what I'm gonna do.
I would love to talk about actual philosophers and their ideas and how those have stemmed up through ideas and culture, because I think it's important. One of the other things that I'm noticing, again, just to finish wrapping this up, that a lot of nothing's new. These philosophers have been talking about these things for thousands of years, and it's really interesting to take, Plato and Socrates and Aristotle and find them in our own, cultural ideas and our own literature today.
Well, I mean, they wrote the book on the society we live in, right? I mean, they kind of made Western
and logos
society
and ideas and truth and logic, and those are all, again, Western society and is all perpetuated by white people. All right, moving on.
That's what people say.
Let's talk about some crypto. So
yeah, we hold cryptos. We've got some cryptos.
One of the things that bugs me the most, I think, about crypto this time around is I was on Money Twitter for like the past 6 months and no one talked about any type of crypto. Twitter. But now there's a bunch of these like Gumroad gurus that are like, what?
Oh yeah, of course you're gonna get that. No, this was happening back in 2017.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, but it stopped. But like I remember that, like it's starting to happen again, it did in 2017. Stopped
because there was a year of no movement. I mean, the fact of the matter is, back in 2017, there was a giant jump, and that giant jump was from like $700 to $1,400, moved all the way up to. We're talking about Bitcoin, of course. It was $1,700, and then all of a sudden it started going up and up and up and up. And I remember like, when it hit 2000, I was like, oh man, I got to get into this now. And my bank was like, no.
Yeah, no.
My bank was like, oh, we don't mess with this. I had to go through all these routes just to get into it. And I by the time I had figured it out, it took me like 2 weeks to get money into this marketplace somehow. And it was at 4,000. And then it went up and up and up. And it kept going up all the way up to like, can you believe it? $18,000 for one Bitcoin. And that was back in 2017. And that right there was what made everyone be a guru. You had all these influencers that are like, crypto's a new thing. Look at my crypto channel, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, they had no idea what they were doing. It was just like, this is the hot thing to get me popular. And I hold all these cryptos. I know this, that, and the other.
It's happening again, too. And it's interesting because
it's definitely, that's kind of my point, is it happened at 18,000. And now that it's like in between 50 and 60,000, and it's on top of the news and everything, all these people are gurus all of a sudden. It cracks me up.
Yeah, and
Plus you have
I want to be a
people like
guru, but
Elon
like I
Musk
also know
doing
that
Dogecoin.
that I have no idea what I'm talking about. So like, but I think that like,
Dude, I would say like there's 5% of the people who have crypto have any clue what the hell they're talking about, and
And
we are
that's
not.
kinda-
Yeah, I'm not even one of them. I'm
that's-
not one of them. I know minor things about it. That's it.
that's why I think it would be interesting for us to do layman's analysis of crypto.
Oh yeah, I mean I can do layman's all day.
And I mean, I think it's interesting because, there is so much more room for this space to grow. I think it is still to be decided whether crypto is going to be
It'll
the
be
thing
second
or
nature in
not.
a decade. It'll be second nature in a
Maybe.
decade. Everybody will have something. Everyone will know something in a decade is my guess.
Or be using it in some sort of way like how people
they'll
use
be
the
using
internet but
it,
have no
certainly.
idea how it works type of thing. Yeah.
Exactly. I don't know how the internet works. It just works. It'll be the same
True. I
thing.
don't know how the internet works either, so.
But yeah, no, recently, so
So much
the
red,
hilarious
dude.
thing. The hilarious thing. Well, yeah, today's
20.
so,
Oh, Doge is back down to 20 cents. That's
yeah.
hilarious.
So
I didn't
like
see
that, I was just gonna say Dogecoin. So I hate Dogecoin. I think it's ridiculous. But I
think it's
also
hilarious.
see some of the benefit in it just because it's like, first off, it's a joke. Like the whole thing's a big joke.
It's
But
definitely just a joke.
anything that becomes viral or becomes just gets out there in the mainstream, that is actually just good for crypto as a whole. So it's good. It's a good thing because people like Elon Musk are like, oh, Dogecoin, he's really joking. But every time he does it, he knows he has so much influence that just holding Doge at like whatever is going to give him value, and like he's going to be able to sell it for crazy money because
Doge got
he's
to
the one
30
pushing it.
cents.
Yeah, man. So like there are two different types of people in crypto. I think one of them is like a true investor who understands the real potential, and the other one is the person who thinks they might get rich quick and or thinks it's a fun fad to get into. And both people are definitely driving the market, so I don't disparage one or the other, and I'm honestly kind of in between. I happen to have gotten
right there
in
too.
way back in the day. So I got
But
in
we
even
didn't
before
capitalize on it
2017.
because we were dumb and our banks were holding us back.
Well, I didn't know what it was. I thought it was interesting. I bought a half a Bitcoin at $700 back in like 2013, 2014, something like that, and had it on a hard drive somewhere that was just like an old computer. And like, if it wasn't for that, I might have gotten in with like $500 or something like that. But like, that was a serious boon, and it allowed me to kind of learn and trade a little bit. But like, did I make mistakes? Oh my God, all the dang time. I'm making mistakes within the last month. I could be having way more than I have now. But again, at the very least, it's just interesting to be involved in the marketplace, being able to trade and buy and sell and choose which kind of altcoins and shit coins you want to get.
I just
definitely
love
a
watching
thing.
people like being like, Doge, you should buy Doge. No. Don't
Yeah,
tell
anyone who
people
says
to
you should
yeah,
buy
that-
Doge and they're serious is like they need to be re-educated.
And like I said, it's these Gumroad gurus who are selling courses on how to, do different things online, and now they're trying to get into crypto, and I'm like, I don't know, man.
Well, we talked about this the other day, but like I learned everything I knew about trading from a Gumroad style thing. It was a Udemy course, but it was like, it was super helpful. Like it was literally, I had to be walked through how do you even get your money onto one of these marketplaces. And so, if they're doing that again, which they probably are, and some of them are terrible probably, but it is what it is. I don't disparage that kind of thing. But no, we'll talk about crypto quite a bit because, we are both very active, I guess. I mean, I trade crypto all the time. We're in it. I'm not a millionaire in it. I'm not even a multi-thousandaire in it. I am just
the way I looked at it too is that the FOMO isn't really big for me because, like, again, evaluating my financial situation for the past 5 years, when I got into crypto 5 years ago, there's no real purchase that I would have made that would have made me a millionaire. Maybe if I would have bought one Bitcoin when it was at 3 G's at the beginning of the year, But like even that, like I didn't have that.
You wouldn't
type
be a
of
millionaire.
money.
You'd be a 50,000aire, and that's not.
Well,
not
if
much.
I had 50 G's, I could leverage 50 G's a lot better than I have right now. But that's again,
Certainly.
that
So we all
is the
could.
FOMO. That's the I wish I would have bought the Bitcoin like I knew I should have. But
Well, the real question is, and everyone, there's a lot of people who are like Bitcoin is going to crash to zero, and then there are people like it hasn't even got started at 50K, and if that's the case, then we're still in that. You know what I mean? I've been steadily just putting. If I feel like I have an extra couple $100 that I would alternatively put in the savings account or something, it's like I'm just like, I'll take the risk.
Yeah.
A couple $100 extra bucks. If it really will go up to 100K, which I truly believe it will. If it does go up to 100K, unless there's some major pushback by some regulators, politicians, whatever, or major countries, that's the only way it's going down. And if that doesn't happen and the countries embrace it, then it will skyrocket. And man, those couple $100 that I put in it is going to be a heck of a lot bigger returns than there's going to be. I'm putting it into a savings account with
nothing.
4% interest garbage a year or whatever.
0.4.
So I don't know, whatever.
0.001.
Yeah. Garbage. So like, I don't mind losing $300 to take that risk. Now, am I going to mortgage a house and put, some people were doing back in 2017 and, putting 100K in because they took all their money out? Well, frankly, if they did that in 2017 and they stuck to it, then they're freaking millionaires.
Good. Yeah, they'd have a lot of money.
They're millionaires. But they didn't probably when it crashed because they're just like, oh no, this is a terrible thing.
One of the best theories about Bitcoin that I've seen, I think it was Tony Antonopoulos. I don't know how to say his name, whatever. He was explaining about looking at the market cap of gold. And if you're going to try and compare gold and Bitcoin together, Bitcoin's at what, 1 trillion, right?
Yeah, it's basically it's a little under $1 trillion right now.
Gold has a 10 trillion market cap. So if you were to then expect Bitcoin to ever get to the type of market cap that gold does, I mean, you're taking whatever the value is now and then timesing it by 10, basically. So that's
it's not out of the realm of possibility, though.
Which is kind of why it's crazy. One of the other things he was talking about is implementing a type of investment strategy like dollar cost averaging and just continually buying Bitcoin and just trying to accumulate it and not really worrying about the price. I think that's the best strategy. And if people really think it's going to ever get to the market cap, well, I mean, not even though. Like again, if you're just accumulating $25, $50 here, $100 there, over the next 5 years with the $10 trillion market cap in sight, well, you're going to have a lot of not necessarily return, but a value gained by just doing that type of thing. And again, if obviously not financial advice, but if you have some money to spend, what are you going to do with it? You're going to put it in the stock market? You're going to put it in a savings account?
Market and watch it just sit there. You can have some fun with crypto right now.
Well, I mean, I would say it's all about how much risk are you willing to take. I would say the savings account is less risky. The stock market is risky, and then the crypto market's the riskiest. Whatever.
I don't know. It depends.
Bitcoin is way more risky than the stock market. Because
don't get me wrong. I know, because there's all kinds of assurances in the stock market that are not in cryptocurrency.
Yeah, and also just the timeline of how long the stock market has been working. You can look at the averages, and again, you're going to get about an 8 to 10% average if you are in it for 10 to 15 years.
People like us, though, people our age, people who are in kind of their, young working lives who may or may not have just a little extra, taking that risk is not that big of a deal. If we're talking like putting hundreds of thousands of dollars into it, that to me, honestly, that would turn the tide for me. It would be, I don't think that I would want to put that much risk in of my money. But the couple $1,000 I have in it, and again, because I got sort of lucky getting half a coin, for me it's just kind of like, this is an enlightening experience to learn kind of how this market works. whatnot, and kind of watch it go up, watch it go down. I'm not that emotionally invested in the money, and so
that was I
again,
mean, I learned almost all of my market behaviors and reading, and my first exchange experience was with Bitcoin, and then basically once it all dropped, I'm like, wait, this is just like the stock market. Why am I not doing that too?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, and I think a lot of people our age have learned that those pseudo skills, or kind of weak skills, if you will, doing that. And I think a lot of people have been like, well, this is what I want to do now. I would love to do that, as a job. It's just, it takes a lot to do it.
And you also, again, have to have the capital. And I think
you have to have a lot of money. Yeah, that's another thing.
Like,
if you're going to put a lot of time into it, you got to have $100,000 to invest.
But once you have that, I mean, you don't need 100,000. You can start making money on options with like 2 Gs. But you can, but not take over your income money. You know what I mean? It depends though, man. Sometimes if you got 10 Gs and you can average, option plays at, a 10% return and make $100 to, $500 from these options, that's just money that will,
source, yeah.
You can accumulate those types of things. The thing that I think is the weirdest, since we're talking about crypto, not really just the financial market, is people are doing this in crypto. And these are the people that are putting $10,000 in and then watching Bitcoin go up and down and playing the
volatility. They're doing it in crypto now because it's so prevalent. It's just like the word is out. People weren't doing it in between 17 and 18, and then 18 got crazy, and then in between 18 to 19 to 20, it was just kind of more even keel. And a lot more people are just involved now. I mean, if you look at, I remember the total market cap for all cryptocurrency was at like 400 billion.
That. Yeah,
and that was like less than a year ago. And now it's hovering in between 2 trillion. Like, just the amount of people that have gotten into it is what makes people be able to trade on it, especially the people who know what they're doing, man. Like, it's a great option for them now, as long as if you're getting in, getting out. Or
a lot of that trading is not legal, though. This is the other thing that I think is super interesting.
That's a big deal. That's a big deal. And the regulation is what will make it closer to the stock market.
People don't want to necessarily get into some of these like liquidity pools or what's the other ones? The airdrops. So a lot of that stuff is kind of illegal. And
well, I mean, it's almost like it's never been tried before, so it's sort of illegal, sort of not. It's just like not regulated.
Well, yeah, they're taking these new financial concepts and trying to apply old financial concepts to them.
Yeah, and then people are getting screwed, and that's the illegal part. But it's it's not illegal till there's a law against it, and there are laws coming out all the time that are kind of that should or should not be deterring this type of stuff, and it's really kind of your perspective on it. But yeah, that's probably enough crypto talk. We could talk about crypto.
I mean, again, wrapping it up, that's the intro to our kind of experience with crypto, and I think that we could, again, I focus on specific philosophy topics. I would love to do a coin review where we just are picking a coin and going over it.
Yeah, there's so many crappy coins we could talk about.
But there's also a lot of good coins we can talk about too. Do you see the Tether's about to get put onto Binance? Not Binance, but Coinbase.
Yeah, I mean, well, the Tether's how I got stuff on.
That's what I'm saying. There. It's finna be
crazy. No, coin every time something gets on Coinbase is good, because Coinbase is the easiest format to work with it. It's kind of like the Robinhood. All right, cool. My favorite part. Let's talk about some stuff that's fun and sci-fi.
It's fun.
Do you want to do
sci-fi?
Do you want to talk about Dune first? You want to talk about Marvel?
Let's end with Dune, because I don't want to talk about Marvel that much, because I actually really don't care.
Yeah, I know you don't care, and I do care way too much. So, here's what I do want to talk about this though.
Did you like Scarlet Witch? Did you like that show?
Yeah, it's called WandaVision, but yeah,
I don't care.
So the big thing I want to talk about, you saw Endgame, right? Mm-hmm. So I have been obviously a huge Marvel fanboy for a while. I still am. And I was talking to one of my buddies the other day about kind of like these shows and how these shows are kind of unique. They really are.
Yeah.
And so you saw WandaVision. WandaVision is weird, and it's unique. And Falcon Winter Soldier is more of like an action show or whatever. But what I think is the most interesting about these things is if you saw Endgame or you watched all the movies leading up or most of the movies leading up, you know that it's like this insane crescendo of 10 years of action movies. But there's never been done like that before. And so with such a huge crescendo, a huge ending, where do you go from there is the big thing.
That's a good one.
And so it's like, how do you top Endgame? Like, how do you top it? Well, Marvel they're pretty genius in what they do because you don't top it. You just don't. You go a different route. Instead of trying to be bigger action, more characters all at once, just overdo it, they started getting human. With the characters. So if you watched WandaVision, without any spoilers or anything, WandaVision is all about grief. It's about how did Wanda deal with losing her parents, losing her lover, losing her, team, losing her brother, losing all these things. So it's just about grief. It's about human and less about superpower thing for most of it. And then you have some cool fight scenes and then you have some cool concepts. And so that's like, okay, how do we get something that's interesting but not try to top the 10 years leading up to Endgame? So that's what I think makes these shows just unbelievable. And so then now Falcon Winter Soldier, this one is about mental illness and kind of dealing with loss and dealing with kind of how do you take mental illness and how do you take terrible pasts and things like that and abuse and get over it. And like these really human concepts are very interestingly portrayed in these shows. So I don't know if you even noticed that when you watch WandaVision, but I analyze these shows probably a lot more than most people do.
No, I'll be honest, I was probably biased by that because of the way that Tim talked about it and how awful and how much he didn't like it, so that had biased me into it. I enjoyed the show. The only criticism was I didn't like the switching of the genres through the episodes, but I guess it made sense towards the end because she was.
Yeah, when you get to the explanation, that was one of the things that I thought was most interesting because the show just starts off like, what the hell is going on? What is going on?
I changed my perspective because at first I didn't like that portion of it, but
I just thought it was weird.
But then towards the end, I actually liked how it ended up working out. Because yeah, that's right. Because the connection between her younger self, like what you're saying with the grief, with the shows was there. It wasn't just a stupid ploy that they were adding into the show. No, it actually was a recurrence from her past memories manifesting herself in her own world. That's what I thought was the most interesting part about that.
The thing that I love about it, there has never been a show like that. And the actual how they tied it all together at the end with her watching those movies and things with her family or whatever, and that's what she surrounded herself with.
Yeah, that's what I thought was actually interesting.
So interesting, and I honestly, Tim Pool doesn't always talk about, frankly.
I think
anytime he talks about these, he just doesn't. He's very casual with it, and that's fine. Most people are. You are. I mean, most people are not. They don't analyze these types of sci-fi and superhero shows and things like I do, but I thought it was genius. And I think the main thing that I think is so cool about these shows, and I hope they keep doing them. Obviously it's Disney. They're going to get woke at certain points. They're going to try to make relevant cultural issues. That's going to happen. Like I'm almost desensitized to the wokeness, that they throw in shows now because it's just almost always somewhat apparent. And so I don't necessarily criticize Marvel shows on that, although it's also just because I'm a huge Marvel fanboy and pretty much anything Marvel does is fine for me. But I think it's just so interesting how they took a crescendo of 10 years of crazy, movies all adding up to an ending. And what do you do after the ending? You make these interesting shows about each individual character and their human side and their emotional side, and kind of add in a few minor new characters, whatever. but you hit some interesting topics. Now, you need to continue watching Falcon Winter Soldier. It gets really good, in my opinion.
The third episode was actually I've enjoyed it a lot. Like I said, the criticisms were there, and it was a little cringy at some points. But
there's only one point in the show that really cringed me, and that's when it was like they're talking in the street and these freaking cops.
Yeah,
and
like
sir,
I knew that was coming, and it's like I kind of get what's happening there, but it's such a
but it's bad,
exaggerated moment.
I am blown away actually by how they portray Sam, the Falcon, and how he kind of doesn't go along with this whole notion, this woke notion that they try to perpetuate a little bit in the show, where it's like, oh yeah, America's terrible and America's just this, beefcake incel. This new Captain America is just this asshole white guy. And it's like, there's a little bit of that there, but the two main characters, they don't seem to ever be affected by the wokeness that they're trying to portray in the show. And so it's almost anti-woke in that way, which is what I love about it. And so, and you'll see when you watch a little more of it. But I've really fallen in love with the two characters. So, we'll see where it goes from here. They say they might do a season 2 of that show. It hasn't done well. That show in particular hasn't done as well as WandaVision did, for instance. And
I think people did get turned off by WandaVision a little bit. Then maybe that's why they're not watching it.
People didn't like how she was like not really redeemed at the end, and she was the bad guy and the things she was doing to the people. And I'm like, why does everybody have to be like?
Why does that really matter? Like I agree that doesn't really matter.
Like, she's not. She's been the villain before in like the Avengers movie. Like she was the bad guy.
Yeah.
So like, she's not perfect, and she's not even really all that good. Like, and you don't always have to be. If you read comics, almost every single good guy has either a point in a comic where he becomes bad, she becomes bad, or there's a point in the comic where there's an evil version of them they have to either overcome or fight or whatever. Mm-hmm. That's just a running theme in comic books. But
I think that I think that topic leads well into what I like about Dune.
Yeah.
The thing, because I was thinking about this today, when I first started Dune, one of the biggest things that caught my attention was the humanity aspect of that book. And like it's very, very subtle, and it was hard to kind of catch. But basically, like in the Dune universe, most of those people aren't humans. They're like weird
genetically
they're like weird computer people or something.
Over thousands of years, they've been genetically enhanced or enhanced by whatever.
Yeah, and it's funny because like the other reason I bring that up is because I'm reading a different Frank Herbert book that I feel is kind of the starting idea of that. It's basically about this colony ship, or what would that be? Colonizing ship that they're sending out into the universe, and what they have these mechanical brains that are like running the ship like AIs, but they're like still mechanical AIs, and they get stuck because they die. These mechanical brains die, and then they have to now create basically what a mentat is, which was like a independent thinking computer that's its own basic consciousness. And it's interesting to tie in the two series together because it really is like combining. He really was writing like the start of his universe, and then the 10,000 years later that is the Dune universe as well. And I think it's interesting how he's trying to connect the two. And that's what I like about Paul, the character, so much, is that he is kind of that essence of human consciousness. Yeah.
Well, Dune, Dune it's been around for so long and influenced so much sci-fi that I think now that this new movie is coming out, like you can see bits and pieces of the type of writing or the type of characters that get developed in Dune and a lot of different sci-fi things. And now that this movie is coming out, I'll be interested to see if it captures that kind of spirit, or if it's just going to be just way more action. Because if you watch the 80s Dune movie, it's kind of like it sort of captures that.
No. I disagree. That movie is perfect.
Oh,
it is word for word the book, and that was the one thing that I thought they did so well.
But it's hard to relay what the things that you're talking about to the screen from the actual book itself.
The book has a lot more of the internal thought and context
because
of what was happening.
I think that movie, like you said, it's kind of perfect, but that might be its downfall because it's one of those movies that was made like solely for the book readers.
Yeah.
And I think when people saw it, they saw this grand. I mean, the movie was super duper expensive, like one of the most expensive movies of the time. And it is so kind of dry, and
it's very dry.
And as is the book. But I think it was that movie was made for readers specifically, and it's really kind of hard for someone watching that to understand the same thing that you would get from reading the book.
Because something that movie did was the movie was super good at pulling my favorite quotes and thoughts and adding them to the movie, because those are the important parts. But you're missing kind of the context around those thoughts that kind of give the
if you
extra
think about it from the
introspection
perspective of a random 80s movie goer. I mean, if you watch, I watch so many 80s movies, they're hilariously bad. Like especially sci-fi. I mean, think about some of those ridiculous 80s movies that they like riff on with like, Mystery Science Theater, or like the guys who do riff tracks or whatever. There's so many 80s sci-fi movies that are just garbage. And it's like people that went to go see, and people were accustomed to that, just like a romp or whatever, a goofy movie to eat popcorn in front of the theater or whatever in the 80s. This movie, when it came out, was like freaking 3.5 hours long, and it was literally like the book. And so, like, that's one thing that I'm talking about is this new movie is going to be like it's got to be like 4 hours long.
It's going to has to be like 4 hours long.
And unless they cut a lot
give
of
it
it
a
out,
golden compass treatment or something.
I bet they won't. But like, I am interested to see if it is more reminiscent of the 80s version, where it's like they try so hard to be the book, or they just really kind of adapt it more for nowadays, sci-fi epics or sci-fi operas or whatever. We'll see. I mean, frankly, based on the trailer, it looks like it very much is following the book, but also has some just crazy elements that they could throw in there. We'll see.
So I'm reading the graphic novel of it now too, and
that thing's pretty cool.
It's super cool, but it's incredibly castrated. Like you don't.
Oh
get,
you don't
tiny.
Get like. I saw
there's
dude,
only
the
160
one
pages.
Is like tiny, yeah.
And that's the first half of the book, or at least they're probably. I think it's the first. Third.
It would. That you would think it wouldn't even cover
and like,
much of it at all.
It ends.
I mean, I'm sure it is.
But it's good, but and it catches the same kind of thing like how the movie did. It catches all the core thoughts and the core scenes and all the things that were happening. But there's so much more to that book. That's why I really liked that book so much. Was there was a lot of the really cool introspective human consciousness thought processes in that book that was so cool. I also love how he built out the universe in that first book too, because you're like, who the Bene Gesserit? What's up with what's up with this? Why are these worms like this? What is happening
people
here?
At the beginning? Yeah.
And
it is fleshed out.
Now that being said,
out toward the end, but it can be hard to read. It can be really hard to read.
Oh,
I've read it twice.
I've had people tell me that they don't like it, but it's like
it's a hard book to recommend. Is how I'll say
it's a hard book to stick with. It's easy to recommend, but it's just not for everybody.
It's a hard book to recommend, and then that individual reading it have the experience that you want them to have, unless they're a certain type of reader, I guess.
And that's true, and that's going to be for everything, I'm 90 plus hours, 120 plus hours into that series just through audiobooks.
Yeah. Audiobooks is a really good way to read that book.
One of the worst, what would be the word, reviewed books in that series is The God Emperor. Mm-hmm. That book is awesome. Because it's almost too hard to follow.
But it's just wars, right?
No. That's Paul. That's Paul of Dune.
Yeah, Paul of Dune. Yeah, that's the
son.
Jihad and whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, but no. The God Emperor is actually a Frank Herbert book, and it feels a lot like how Messiah did.
Yeah.
But crazy things kept on happening, and like one of the things that you probably, I mean, I know I've told you about this before, but like, was it Duncan Idaho is like the second biggest character in that entire series.
Yeah, and he's an awesome character.
And no one ever really talks about that, but that book is about him and the god King Leto, and it was super interesting because that's another, again, going back to like looking at the human side of it, is that he keeps on creating him because he's so human. Mm-hmm. And he's like a 2,000-year-old remnant of like this past person and humanity in general. And that book is so weird. That it's definitely not for everybody, but it's one of my favorite in the series that really kind of brought a lot of it together. And I have 2 more books that I need to read for because I'd like to finish all the Frank Herbert books at least.
Yeah, well, I mean, just to get away from the books a little bit, because if people haven't read them, it's kind of arduous, but they definitely should. It's definitely something that I'd recommend. But the movie is kind of a more relevant thing because it was supposed to already come out. Now they're thinking about
20. It was like December it was supposed to come out, right?
I think it was supposed to come out, the end of 2020, and now they've pushed it all the way to the end of 2021. And they're going back and forth on whether they're going to put it on streaming or they're just going to put it in theaters. But man, I haven't seen a movie in theaters in so long. I am looking forward to. I would see literally anything in theaters.
I hope that they put it. I hope that they.
But I hope they only put it in theaters because, man, I'm sure it costs a lot to make. And I'm
going to see that thing in IMAX. I don't even care.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm hoping that it is one of those movies that people will go out of their way to see because it's an epic that needs to be seen in IMAX or at least in the big screen.
Yeah.
And that it's kind of going to break people away from the idea of not going to theaters anymore. Because, man, if theaters go the way of the dinosaurs, I'm going to be super pissed because I absolutely have some of my favorite. Dude, honestly, there's a real good chance that they will. There's a real good chance that this year, people are all about convenience. We are so damn convenient. And people have realized now that, oh man, I can just pay $15 and watch this crap on my gigantic TV in my house and I don't have to go anywhere. Like the same thing's happening with video games, man. Like
there will be always
handed to you.
There will always be people like me and you that want to go see that, and that will create a market for people.
Yeah, but we can't prop it up enough, is what I'm saying. Like you have to have the casual moviegoers. If you don't have the casual moviegoers, it's not enough.
Dude, they've had drive-in movie theaters for
but
100
also
years.
Think about it from this perspective, though. How many gigantic budget movies with gigantic budget actors have they now just simply made on Netflix, made on Amazon?
Yeah, but they're not making the same amount of money. As soon as they have the opportunity to make that type of money again, they will.
Well, they are, because they're cranking out so many of them, and their streaming services are making the money.
Now, that being said, did you watch Godzilla vs. Kong?
Yeah.
Did you like that movie?
No. It was whatever. It was fine. It was freaking monsters punching each other.
I'm going to disagree. I actually liked that movie a lot.
The movie was insanely stupid.
Yeah, sure, cool. But
it's supposed to be.
I haven't watched a movie that I thoroughly enjoyed that much in a long, long time.
Yeah, but Andy, that movie is meant for the big screen, yet you watched it on the small screen.
It's true. That was a movie that me and Taylor were like, yo, do we want to go see that in the theaters? Like, yeah sure.
Exactly.
But let's just watch it on my big screen.
You're proving my point right now.
But I want to see it in theaters.
Yeah, I certainly would love to have seen it in theaters too, but I didn't because it was convenient to simply, hey, you want to watch this movie? Oh, it's like $13. That's fine. We'll order pizza and watch this movie.
You paid $13 for that?
I don't know, whatever it was. It was $6 or
I have
something.
Stolen Father's HBO account. So
I have that. I have my own HBO account. We still have to pay for it though. So there's one of those things you had to pay for.
No, it wasn't. It was free.
Maybe it was free. I don't know. Regardless, there are some movies on there. There are some movies on there, but my point still stands, and this is the same thing with Dune. Is we will see if Dune is the type of movie where people will just say,
"Oh, I won't watch Dune."
Hell no, I will not watch that on TV, and we'll see. Maybe there will be enough people that will buy it on TV. But yeah, that's gonna have to happen. I mean, there's the Black Widow movie as well. The Black Widow movie was supposed to come out like a freaking year ago.
I'm probably gonna watch that on my TV. I'm probably not gonna.
Right, of course. But the thing is if that wasn't an option, I would absolutely go out of my way to see it in the movie theaters.
Makes sense.
And now that it is an option, I will probably watch it on my TV.
Yeah,
and so I'm just saying, we'll see. We'll see if there's a resurgence.
There weren't many movies that I wanted to go see in theaters anyway, and the way that I operated was like with the other, I think it was Skull Island or something. It was like maybe a movie I kind of wanted to see in theaters, but I was like, I'll just wait for it to come out in streaming. So I was already waiting and not going to the movie theater anyway. But
I know it's been a steady decline, but I think the pandemic is one of those nail in the coffin. Whether it's going to absolutely kill it or not, it's definitely changed people's behavior. Like really changed people's behavior.
I must interject and say that you are probably correct, because the majority of people do not want to wear pants when watching movies.
Oh, an interesting fact on that, pants.
You're welcome.
I read it the other day when I was listening to it was like a 5-minute finance blog or not, whatever, like a vlog. They were talking about Levi's jeans is one of the heaviest hit industries. Like Levi's almost went completely under because ain't nobody buying jeans during the pandemic.
Who buys Levi jeans anymore?
The denim industry, people were like, that was literally denim. There was such an oversupply of denim because no one was buying it that it was a serious issue for them. So, they were like, well, if you want to get into something that probably will have a comeback, that's one of those things, along
jean
with
jackets. I got it. Jean capes.
Along with the hotel industry and the,
jean capes.
These types of industries,
the hotel
that are all coming back. No, it'll be fine. I think the denim industry will be fine. It's just it was one of the heaviest hit things because nobody wanted to wear pants.
I would say that we're going to see a huge boom in the economy here in the next year, but I don't think so. I think we're screwed.
I don't know, and I don't propose to know. So, all right, cool. That's entertainment.
Let's close it out. It's an hour and a half. We got 3 minutes left.
Sounds good. Why don't we
close it out?
You really wanted to talk about this Mars copter. We probably should do that for a second. I don't even know what happened. I don't even know what happened with it.
All right, so I'll go ahead and just talk about it real quick. I don't need to pull anything up. So they sent a new a new space rover to Mars. On it, they put a helicopter. And so what they have now on Mars is
like a drone, right?
No, it's a helicopter. It is a drone, but it's got rotors, so it's like it's a drone, but it's more like a helicopter because it's bigger. They were able to make it fly, so people were calling it akin to the Wright brothers creating the plane. And how's there even a correlation between that? Because we have now established flight on 2 different planets.
Okay. It's kind of a stretch.
Why?
But okay, I'm with you.
Well, no. But
we didn't. The Wright brothers created flight.
And
first
we've
in
now
general
taken that flight to another planet.
Okay, sure.
Plus, there's also a piece of the Wright brothers plane on it. So the Wright brothers plane has now flown on 2 planets.
That is interesting. I did not know that fact, so that is definitely interesting to the viewers at home.
All one of them.
For some reason, because I'm really huge into sci-fi, and I love what Elon Musk is doing with all this stuff, and I love this whole being on Mars. I think it's awesome. For some reason, I don't care about this, copter.
But why though? That's what I'm saying. I don't know why people don't care more about this. We should definitely all have it be a cultural
Oh, I
thing.
know why people don't care about this stuff, because it's
boring.
It's not even that it's boring. It's just that,
on our lives.
It's not like it was in the 60s where it was this is
It should
this
be,
race
though.
to do this.
Bro.
This is a national thing. Like, no one cares. No one cares.
On that same note, they also created oxygen on Mars. Did you know that?
Yeah, I did know that. I heard that.
That's
insane.
Sweet.
It's all cool, man. But like, the fact is, like, living on Mars is a huge hurdle for most people, and they're like,
Dude,
there's
I
so
wanna
much
go to Mars
garbage
so
going.
bad.
There's so much garbage going on our planet.
Dude, I'd go to Mars.
That doing this extra stuff to get there really doesn't seem like people care all that much. I think it's cool from like a sci-fi perspective, like turning sci-fi into reality. That's where I think the cool benefit is, but it's not like it's gonna better humanity in like the next 100 years.
Dude, it's gonna be on Mars in 5 years. What are you talking about?
No.
Yes.
There will be a few people on Mars.
Yes,
maybe, in the
we
next 5
as
years.
a
Humanity
society
will
and
not
humanity
be benefited by that and for
That's
hundreds of years.
No, it's not, dude. I bet you that we will see a colony on Mars in the next 30 years.
Yes, but how will that benefit humanity is my question.
Because it will lead to expansion of society. It will lead to...
Maybe in 100 years it'll lead to expansion of society. That's exactly my point.
No, it's going to lead to the expanse of society now, because once we're there, people will start focusing and building on that.
My point is people don't care for that reason.
2 words. Space, economics. Have you heard anyone talking about that yet?
I have, yes, I know what that means. But it is a thing that is so far in the future. My point is not that I don't care about it. I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting. I'm just saying the general public, because you said, why don't people care about this right now?
Yes.
Here's why. Because there is no foreseeable benefit for 30, 40, 50, maybe 100 years. And so people are like, whatever, there's so much crap going on here. The same thing happened, by the way, in the 60s. The same thing happened.
But I don't want that to happen, though. That's what I'm saying.
People didn't care about the moon landing and stuff. And people even protested it because it was like, why are we spending billions of dollars on this when our major cities are like crumbling and we are all in abject poverty? And so like, I'm not saying we're there now. We're not there now. And this country is one of the most wealthy countries, and our poverty line is like ridiculously, higher than most countries, and certainly most third world countries. But like, the fact is, this is the reason people don't care, is because it is just kind of a novelty, I guess is the best way to put it right now. They did a helicopter on Mars. This is kind of a novelty. It's like, oh, that's cool.
No, it's not a novelty. It's cutting edge science. I
know, but it is for the normal person. It is a novelty. It's like, oh, I saw a headline that they made a little helicopter on Mars. That's cool. Oh, I saw in a headline that they took some pictures. That's cool. And it's not like everyone is not huddling around their televisions like watching it and clapping and cheering like they did in the 60s, because there's no reason to, as a nation, do this. Like, maybe it will be when we put a human on there, but robots and stuff.
I don't know. I just think that that's so much more interesting than all the stupid stuff that we have to talk about nowadays.
Well, it certainly is. I completely agree, but most people don't care.
Well, why? They should care. Space is cool. If we're gonna, if and this is the way I look at it. If society is going to continue, we have to do space economics. We have to start thinking and talking about these ideas and start formulating plans and ways to utilize this new technology, these new spaces, these new areas. And how can we do it? We're not going to talk about it if we're like, oh, cool, the helicopter on Mars, not a big deal. I don't care.
Frankly, if we don't stop launching crap into our orbits, we won't be able to get off this planet anyway, because of
but again, that's just a technical issue that we just need to figure out a way to solve. Whether it's blasting it, whether we're creating an outlaw star that has a spaceship with arms on it that just goes out and then collects stuff, dude. Like,
we'll figure that out. Elon Musk will do it for us. God Emperor Elon Musk,
or not God Emperor Elon Musk, with
his
sidekick Doge.
Honestly, Elon Musk, I asked this right before we got on, like, does anyone actually hate Elon Musk? Like, has he ever been a kind of hated figure? Is there like anybody who talks smack about him? I can't really think of anyone who does.
Except for the SEC. But,
Right, but they're not like individuals talking smack in comment sections and things like that. That's
I don't
kinda
know.
what
Who do you think is on the side of good versus side of evil? Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos? Are they both on the side of evil? Is one on the good side, one on the bad side? Does it not
I don't
matter?
think either of them are on any particular side. I think
Jeff Bezos is the bad guy, but still, like,
I think they both have a lot of money, and like they just happen to be the figureheads of these massive corporations. It's really the massive corporations that are the evil thing. It's not necessarily the dudes that run them. I mean, frankly, I don't think Jeff Bezos has that much power. He has influence, but I don't think he has that much power other than like the rest of his board. He has a lot of it. He has a lot of it because he has a lot of money. But like in terms of what like Amazon does, I don't think at this point he
I don't think
pushes
Amazon's
all the buttons.
Yeah, but he's more focused on like what's his blue something or whatever. You know what it's called?
What, his space thing?
It's like Blue Solar or something, isn't it?
I don't know.
Jeff.
But yeah, no, both of these guys are revolutionaries, and they're the top echelon, and everyone knows who they are because of how many billions of dollars they have. And so I don't particularly see them as evil or good. But Elon Musk definitely, I think, because he's such a risk taker, I at the very least respect him a lot more.
Blue
because
Origin is what it's called.
Yeah, Blue Origin, that's right. So yeah, no, it's interesting. I think the Mars copter thing is cool. Mars is definitely a cool thing, but I think it's going to be many decades before it really is that important to people. And I think that's why people don't care right now all that much. People think it's interesting and it's a kind of a novelty. So
I agree. It's definitely a novelty. Like I said, you're right. Most people probably don't care about it. I think it's super interesting because like one of the things that I like try to focus on and try and find is that cutting edge of stuff. Like what's the newest thing? What is like I'll go back to this book from I think it was Peter Thiel that wrote it. It's that 0 to 1. Where are the people that are creating that first thing?
Yeah,
that's the thing that I would like when so when we're talking about tech, to wrap up the tech portion to kind of finish it, I want us to look for these cutting edge things.
Yeah, for sure.
Whether it's the palm, did you see that the palm scanning? Did you see that? Amazon's going to start implementing a scanner in their stores that will connect your palm to all your credit cards and all your accounts.
That sounds terrifying.
So that way all you have to do is scan your palm and it will biometrically connect.
Because that's so much harder than clicking on your phone and clicking on.
But what if you don't have that stuff though? Like again, like
who doesn't have that stuff? When was the last time?
What if you forgot it? What if things go out? Like what if your phone's?
If I forgot my phone,
what if you lose your wallet? What if you're across? Like I said, I don't think it's a good idea. I think it's scary to implement.
It's definitely interesting though. It's new. Yeah, it's a new.
But like I said, that type of implementation is something that I think is unique. Kind of like the program chips, did you see talking about Elon Musk? Did you see the Neuralink monkey? Yeah,
that's ridiculous.
Is that not creepy? Is that not cool?
It's what you just mentioned, 0 to 1 kind of thing. Yeah.
Did you see him? He's like, yep, the thing's not plugged in. Look at it. He's using his brain to play Prong, and look what he's good at it. It's monkey brain. Like that stuff is super cool.
It's interesting, yeah.
And I think
so. Yeah, no. In this section, that's definitely what we do. That's what we do. We bring up an interesting thing, whether we either care about it or not. I mean, that it's.
You really don't care.
No, I do for sure. I think it's cool. It's a novelty to both of us. We're not like completely in it. We find it interesting, but. I do think that it is important, but it is still very far in the future when this type of thing is important. We will find certain technologies that are so immersive, and we're going to do a lot of VR stuff eventually. I feel like. Yeah, we should definitely get on that. I think VR is some of the most immersive.
I've been talking about VR since I was like
emergent,
10 years old.
Yeah, I mean it is one of the things that I think is going to be the most prevalent in the least amount of time.
I remember having conversations with my classmates in second grade on the Judah playground, being like, I can't wait for VR to be a thing. And then once it became a thing, I was like, I don't fucking care anymore.
So I had an ad today that was interesting on my Twitter. It was for a virtual meeting space that wasn't any of the ones we've talked about before. So it's not like Decentraland. It's not, VR chat, but it is a meeting space for like businesses where you get everyone together around a table, but virtually. But instead of just staring at each other's face like a Zoom call, you have 3D glasses on or VR glasses on, and you have an avatar and you are sitting around a table, but it's very kind of corporate. It's not like you can have
application would not work.
No, it very much would. That's the thing. They are advertising on Twitter now. That is it's already a business. It's already a thing that's going on.
My point is like,
it's exactly what we were talking about doing.
Our companies, but like we're talking on like a personal basis though, and like trying to get people to
but Andy, think about it. So let's say you've got a tech company, right, who's building software, and they're all young people, and they're all maybe they're from all over the globe. You've got some people from India, you've got people from Pakistan, you got people in China, you got people in America or whatever. Yeah, that would work for them. They would go the extra mile to get the glasses, to do the thing, to sit down, to collaborate, and to bring all that stuff in.
Feasible.
Apparently, it's relatively affordable. If they're advertising to me on Twitter, they are getting to the point where they want the masses to have it. It's not like you can, it might cost thousands of dollars, but it certainly doesn't cost hundreds of thousands of dollars if they're advertising on Twitter.
What was it?
So that's just another thing.
I'm curious.
I should have wrote it down. It seemed interesting and relatively prevalent. Did I stop my Twitter right on it? I don't
360
think so, but
VR meeting space. Aturo?
Yes.
Avatur?
Yes, that's it. And so that's the concept we were talking about. Like we might want to do that on our podcast where we both have the Oculus on or whatever. We're in a meeting space in Decentraland or wherever we end up, and we can pull up the videos right in a virtual space. You can have your avatar be whatever you want, goofy if you want it. This one is just more business-like. It's like your avatar is you, and it's in a suit or whatever. You've got it kind of being it's really interesting to me.
Real-time on-site communication. So that's using a 360 camera to then map the area and then probably AR people into it.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. That is interesting. Very, very applicable. That is something that people are going to be using all the time now.
Virtual reality for business. Use a VR headset to see as you were there. Avatur helps businesses meet sustainable targets while increasing productivity at the same time. Reduce travel. Instead, put a VR headset, see and talk as if you were there, reinventing the site. So they're turning people into robots.
It's the same thing we're talking about doing, VR chat. It's like, yes, you turn yourself into an avatar robot.
Yeah, but this is like taking it one step further and like making people like, why do you need to go down to your manufacturing plant in Florida when you can just VR in there and someone can hold you on a stick and then you can look around. And like that's what this camera is doing. Is it's a 360 camera and then it's recording everything so you can be like, oh, let me look over here. Like, yeah, it's a cool idea.
It's a pretty cool concept. And whether it takes off or not, I mean, like that business is probably definitely getting some. I mean, you just found it in 5 seconds just with me explaining it. So, it's pretty interesting. But that's one of those things you're talking about, the 0 to 1 thing. Like they may just be expounding on something that's already there, but like that might be
audits and inspections is huge because you could. Well, it sounds like a way to screw over the auditor. Probably want the auditor there in person.
Yeah,
but no. This is cool. Like, so it's not in a virtual space. It doesn't look like this is.
But you are using VR.
This is creating avatars. So then, basically, what you would have is 7 of these cameras sitting at one desk. Actually, you know what it is like. It's like the communication in Resident Evil. Do you remember that? In the movie, like the third one?
Yeah.
So in the third movie, when everything's all screwed up and they're like attacking the Umbrella Corporation sites, they're all sitting at a table, and people are popping up in VR or they're popping up in AR, but like it would be that type of thing.
Yeah.
Or like the Jedis. The Jedis did that too, by the way.
That and they did it in the Marvel movies and stuff whenever they were talking, and it's like it is essentially frankly it's Star Trek. Star Trek did this. It's like, or Star Wars, yeah. Basically, yeah, it's a Star Wars thing.
So eventually, it'll be a hologram. So then you'll have the image that's a 360 camera, and then you'll also have a different AR platform.
Sure, that's essentially what this is. Yeah. So yeah, that's definitely an interesting. That's definitely an interesting 0 to 1. So
all right, let's wrap it up. I think that to wrap it up, I agree that I think we should look at going to doing Decentraland and moving this kind of into a what would that be? Into a virtual space for some of the stuff, not all the stuff. I think it would be fun to do interviews and get other people to come into that too, because I know there are some people that want to keep their or have a persona. That would be interesting. Cool. Well, I think again this is hour and 45 minutes. Basically a 2-hour episode.
Yeah, now we just need followers and anybody else to watch us except ourselves.
Someone to actually talk to.
Except for
shout out to Taylor, because I know that she's watching while she's bored at work, so shout out to her.
Heck yeah. Yeah, Sarah watched our last one, so there you go.
So let's try and go ahead and do this type of format. I think that worked well with the topics that we went through.
Worked pretty well.
15 to 20 minutes. We are going to be probably doing this as much as we can every Thursday. Usually probably hopping on around 9 or 10 o'clock and try and do about an hour and a half. Eventually, I will post out links. This would probably would have been a good one to shoot out a link for. But next week, if we want to do it earlier, we can actually shoot out a link to say, "Hey, come join us. We're going to be doing our 4th episode. Here's what we've done talking about."
We'll get a little more regular with when we get on.
We can be a little bit more. I'll be a little more comfortable posting it. This format was good. I'm not really concerned. Think, like I said, I like the idea of us being live because it keeps us kind of in check and makes us be.
I think it works perfectly.
I think it works thoroughly for what we're trying to do.
It's a lot less work on the back end.
Cool. Well, if anyone does watch this, follow me at Dudsnbuds on Twitter. Danny, Deschained.
Don't follow me anywhere yet.
He doesn't want you to follow him. So
I don't have Twitters. Once we become giant YouTube stars, I'll have some handle somewhere I'll tell people about. But at the moment, don't look me up.
Your handle's below you, so it's too late for that.
Yes, but it's not ever used by anything, so it doesn't matter.
But yeah, on Twitter,
I can't get in trouble for it, so I don't care.
I'm also under the name, or I don't know if it's like the handle. I think it's the Broke Millennial. I'd like to do a couple other podcasts, get those guys going. I'd like to do a Broke Millennial podcast, which would be me talking with other guests and my friends about financial issues.
I want to do a sci-fi only podcast that doesn't include you, so that people know what they're talking about when it comes to Marvel, and we can just do straight Marvel all the time.
Marvel. We'll talk video games and books all day.
We could do books and sci-fi and whatnot.
I'll run your show, dude.
We could do a book club. We could do a book club.
We should definitely do a book club. That would be something we'd like to work into this as well, to work into the culture.
Be awesome. If we had a lot of followers that also could contribute to like a book club thing, that'd be super cool. I would love to do that.
I mean, we should maybe start with a book club and then grow a following that way too. I think we'd
probably do that. Absolutely. I mean, yeah.
But like, if you want to do a Marvel or a just pop culture oriented stuff, because I'm not the best at pop culture.
I am the best at it.
I can run it. Just find somebody, and I can bus in both your images, and I can run it from my desktop and record it and stream it.
Yeah, we'll figure that out.
That's what I was saying to Mom. Like, I don't need to be in the image for you guys to utilize this setup that I have here now.
You could be my producer.
So basically, I'd be the producer. Yeah. So then I would pull up.
I might just do it myself.
do it yourself. Yeah, especially if you're gonna have that busting.
That's probably the best way to start. I mean,
Dude, OBS is really easy to use.
I don't need
man.
other people giving me their opinions. I'm the only opinion that matters when it comes to comic books and sci-fi.
Well, good. So that way we can have some more personal stuff. Like I said,
I'm king nerd. I'm king nerd.
I want to try and create as much just general content to kind of fill the space as we can while we build a following and get some thoughts out in the air and in the open. So we'll do that one. I want to do what's up.
Well,
what's good.
we got a couple hours under our belt, so here we go. I just need to get it bigger and bigger. It's pretty good.
What's up? What's good to be tight, and then I'm gonna probably do a live one too, where it'll be me sitting with live people or doing live interviews with people. So
soon we'll get super chats and people can pay us to say one little thing.
Have you seen the super chats that fucking Tim gets on that show, bro? People are spending
he probably makes
thousands of dollars
everyone. The dude is rolling in it, man. The dude owns a ton of land because he's a millionaire now. So let's get to
that's
that.
what we do it. All right, cool. That's it, guys. We will see y'all next week.
Signing off.